All right, y'all. What we doing right here is we gonna get into Valentine Day for Young Thug YSL and the witness on stand is getting the detective on stand is getting Young Thug music mixed up with codes. Okay, let's check it out.
And then it says at SMM underscore player pound or something hashtag against me, and then YouTube on repeat. You see that? I do. And you already told the jurors against me is the song, right? Right. Above it, again, is same type of thing. It's inside the quotes, and Mr. Williams or whomever is doing his Twitter said, "Us, what up?" Responding to what's popping, 5 and 10. Fair to say? Yes. All right. The one above it is similar, Mr. Williams or whomever. It's February 28th, 2012. Responding to what's inside the quotations. Again, SMM, exclamation point, what's popping? Exclamation point, right? Yes. And then on August 27th, 2012, and that's saying rock with a 5, crew with a K, SMM, they riding for Thugger, 3 exclamation points, hashtag black, right? Yes, sir. You already defined that. And then above it, we've already discussed it, correct? We have. And the one above it, we've already discussed it. That's in a song, right? Yeah, as you said,
You don't know.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe it's not? I don't. Okay. And then above it again, that is music, right? Follow. It's the very top one. Follow my dog SNM underscore all then 5-star hashtag black. I don't believe that's music. What part of that are you messing with music? If you go to SNM underscore 5-star hashtag black on that day, you don't get music. I didn't go to his account on that date, but I can't remember if you showed me something from that date or not.
He don't know.
All right. Next one, I think we discussed it all. Just completeness is 49W. And if you could just start at the bottom.
Why he made it small?
And then that, again, is, we've discussed that, right? I believe so, yes. I mean, we just discussed it even today. We discussed it last week, too. Sure. February 2, 2013. That's the music, right? Yes, sir. The one above it is Mr. Walter Murphy, who we discussed, right? We did. And that, again, they're going to, Mr. Williams is going to the Stop the Violence concert in Chattanooga, Tennessee that day, right? We discussed that, yes. Okay, the next one above it is in quotation marks, but not from someone else. But June 30, 2012, an ounce of blood is worth more than a pound of friendship, quote unquote. You know that to be a well-known statement, right? That's a well-known saying. Is that true? I've heard similar things to this. I don't know if I've heard this exact quote before. And do you know that a person could get on Amazon and get that exact quote as an inspirational saying?
No, you don't know.
Okay. Are you aware that do you know where this quote comes from? I don't. All right. All right. The next one above it is January 2013. Again, it's replying to it's us, Shawty, Cohen, at Young Thug World, how much for it says FT blood, but that's a feature, right? You know what that means? I would interpret it that way, yes. And a feature is Mr. Williams.
He don't know.
Right? Correct. And the responses go to his management at arch event, right? Yes. And then above it is kind of cut off, but I read it as August 4th, 2012. Can you make that out? I do. I see. All right. And then again, it's
Can't let y'all see that quote right there.
at jag_MD5. Pay for PU blank blank Y. No, I get too many freebies with emojis. And then word to blood, hashtag blood. Fair to say? Yes. All right. And the top one I can't read. It's blurted out.
Yeah, I don't want to show y'all that.
49 for whatever reason.
Come on, real deal. Y'all come on in here. I need to get at least somebody.
And then the last one, States Exhibit number 50. And I believe we've done all of these. Take a look at it. And if I'm wrong, just tell me which ones we did not do. I believe that we did to the extent I recall. Okay. Let's go back to
Brian Steele. Mr. Steele, y'all.
you're aware whether they're gang members, whether they are citizens who are not in a gang. You're aware through your investigation that people in the Cleveland Avenue, that area, helped Mr. Williams to popularize his music. You remember testifying to that? I don't remember the specific question answered from that part of the testimony. Well, I think I asked you more about, it was that question, but it also revolved around Quentin Porter, known as Boo. Okay. He helped Jeffrey Williams get into establishments, promote his music. And what was the question about him? That him and others helped promote Jeffrey Williams, the musical entertainer. I do believe that Mr. Porter did, to the extent that others is pretty broad. I don't want to specify that. Well, even in these tweets that we discussed, people were promoting the music of Mr. The performer known as Young Thug. Fair to say? Yeah, certainly people were promoting him. And in videos, you're aware that Mr. Williams wrote pictures, wrote songs that he would talk about, use his hands to show what you perceive to be a gang sign, wear jewelry, tattoos. All of that, you realize, promoted the brand Young Thug.
Judge, your Honor, speculation as to what the purpose of articles were.
Okay, don't tell me the purpose, because you can't read anyone else's mind. You've said it. But do you realize that the Young Thug brand used and capitalized?
Objection, Your Honor, testify. Soon based on that.
Do you know whether Young Thug Jeffrey Williams used the environment to promote music? I'm not even sure.
What environment?
The environment that he grew up in. So the question is, am I aware that he used his environment where he grew up to promote his music? You realize that part of being an artist like Jeffrey Williams in gangster rap is to...
Assuming that we realize.
What do you do? They ballers.
Brand Young Thug is gangster rap, right?
Objection, speculation.
If you know, do you know?
Objection, Your Honor, it's still speculation.
It's not speculation if you know it. No, it's a form of question. I'm just saying. You can phrase it like, do you know whether Young Thug performs gangster rap? Yes, he does. And what does gangster rap entail in a music form, if you know?
What is
I would have no
gangster
idea
rap?
to answer that question as to what does it entail. Okay. Now, if there are videos made to promote a song, and during that song there are references that you believe reference gang, like I'm making with my hand, like a B, you realize that's commonplace in gangster rap.
Objection, or you realize it's commonplace.
Do
He
you know
got to
whether
use
it
gangster.
is commonplace for certain
Because y'all call them
artists
gangsters.
to adopt gang logos, terms?
He don't know.
It is used by certain artists to replace certain terms, yes. And on, let's say, a video, just any video, if Jeffrey Williams is aware that he's being videoed,
Objection, regulations of what was, if Mr. Williams is aware of it.
objection. If there's a video, if it's obvious that somebody's videoing other people, do you know whether Jeffrey Williams is performing in that video to enhance the Young Thug image?
Objection to speculation, so why Mr. Williams doing this?
Do you know that there are videos of countless performers or athletes where they are promoting their trade?
Objection made.
Showing that they're part of a gang. There's nothing wrong with that in a video, is there? I'm not sure I understood the question. There's nothing wrong with Jeffrey Williams appearing in a video to promote Young Thug's brand by acting like a gangster, is there?
Objection, Your Honor, every speculation, there's no.
I say, when you spoke with the gang members of the, I think you said rival gang, who took offense to the Super Slimy mixtape cover, is that your testimony? Did you testify something like that?
Objection is characterization.
I'm asking you, did you testify to that? I'll rule the objection. You can rephrase the question, though. Did you testify to that? I did not testify to that. That was not my testimony.
Well, open up your mouth then.
There's nothing wrong with that album cover that you know of that is illegal. Is there?
Counsel is testifying improper question.
Yes, that's the answer. So stand on. Is there any? Let's move on. Okay. May I have one moment then? May I have one moment? Yes.
This is a gang. This gangster. Y'all call them gangsters. So he got to use a word for gangsters. Mr. Steele. Y'all free that boy. That boy ain't did nothing but recommend. Took care of his family. He sleep in court. Wake up, boy, and pay attention. This a Rico. Wake your client up,
Thank you,
man.
Your Honor. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about 10 minutes, and then we'll see where the lunchtime hour leads us at that point. Okay. All right. So we'll be in recess 10 minutes. All right. All rise.
Okay, y'all. They gonna take a break, so but let's skip it. Yeah, let's skip it. Well, Mr. Steele is tearing up. He's showing out on that prosecution. That witness, I meant to say. Oh, he wearing him out, y'all. He wearing his butt out. You hear me? But they got to say stuff about gangster because y'all call them gangsters. So what he supposed to say? He got to say if he witnessed if the witness said something about them being gangster has to be used. It what Mr. Steele is asking them. So hold on, let me put you back some, y'all. Hold on. You ask him about some they gangsters? Boys gangsters. I don't care what y'all say. They just play like that.
Response as his previous had with the same argument that Mr. Nichols is a part of the conspiracy. The evidence of one is evidence of all, and therefore we would ask that he deny the request for severance and deny the request for a 105 instruction.
All right. I'm going to maintain the earlier posture that I indicated, Mr. Harvey. So I'll deny your motion for severance this time and also deny your motion for 105 instruction, and I'll make it a continued objection, okay? All right.
Okay, y'all, let me change.
Sir. I have a compliment to that motion that Mr. Harvey just made. Can I just give the court a copy of the case to look at after the review? At your pleasure. Okay.
312, Georgia.
I'm trying to find the right color, y'all, to put on here.
Now this is Stafford, Stafford versus State, 312 Georgia 811. It's in Division 5A. It's 865 Southeast 2D 116 2021. And on page 12 of 14 on the copy that I've given the prosecutor in this honorable court and the honorable Mr. Kearns, I just want to highlight that the left-hand side
All
of the
right,
last
y'all, that's me messing with the
paragraph,
colors.
our highest court wrote, before admitting statements of a co-conspirator, the state is required to show by a preponderance of the evidence that the conspiracy existed, all that the conspiracy included the declarant and the defendant against whom the statement is offered, and the statement was made during the course and furtherance of the conspiracy. And I raise that because I concur with Mr. Harvey. And I'm going back to like Mr. Eppinger. Obviously, I'm not talking about tweets that purportedly come from the Twitter account of Mr. Williams, but Mr. Eppinger, I made that same objection I've been making the whole time. I don't think that the state has placed, in my opinion, obviously you decide, but I don't believe that the state has put forth any evidence except the statement themselves that Mr. Eppinger is part of YSL. And if it is what it says, if the Supreme Court meant what it said before admitting statements of a co-conspirator, the state is required to show by preponderance of evidence that the conspiracy existed and that the conspiracy included, in my view, Mr. Eppinger's and Mr. Williams, against whom the statement is offered. It's being offered against Mr. Williams, but there's no evidence outside of Mr. Eppinger's Instagram account that Mr. Eppinger is somehow related to Mr. Williams or anyone else. So I just wanted to get that argument before, Mr. Steele. So this is just a newer case authored by Justice LaGrua from our Supreme Court, but it seems to state the same issue that we've argued once before. Well, I just want to, I feel very comfortable with before the state's doing it. The state's putting it in first and then using that statement, in this case, Mr. Eppinger's Instagram, to say, aha, here's YSL on his Instagram logo. And I don't believe it. I think that the cart is being put in front of the horse. So that's my And the state's response is always the same. It's charged as a conspiracy. That's not the rule. So I want to raise that. Thank you. All right.
Get him, Mr. Steele.
Again, the state's position remains the same, that we are in the process of proving the conspiracy, that the conspiracy does exist. We do believe we are showing, and we have shown that by preponderance of the evidence, that there is a conspiracy as to count one, the RICO count, and to show that Mr. Everett is a part of the enterprise that is YSL. And so that evidence would come in to show that he's a part of the greater enterprise, which is the RICO charge in count one, Your Honor.
Yeah, but the statement's made in furtherance of the conspiracy, madam?
Yes, Your Honor, to show the association and the nature of the larger YSL enterprise.
Okay. Mr. Steele, I'm gonna rule your objection at this point in time. And if there's anything else, I'll call up our jurors and we can finish the examination of Investigator Belknap.
That also has continuing objection to the conspiracy, co-conspiracy statements, Your Honor.
I'll make it a continuing objection for because you've raised this before already, so it's not a new thing that you have asked me to consider, you nor Mr. Harvey. So it's already continuing at this point in time, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Some of our jurors, please, sir. Can we get Investigator Belknap back, please? Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, I can't find the cover I want. Look like I'm messing the cover up. Bubba and Boys rap, they rap like that. They just be looking at them boys with them.
Lovely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
All right, y'all. I'm trying to get y'all a good cover right now, and I'm messing up. Maybe I got too much light shining over here.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Ingram. Hi. When we left off, ladies and gentlemen, and the state, you were about to do redirect. Is that correct, Ms. Hill? Okay. All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, last week on cross-examination, I'm going to start with Mr. Shard's cross-examination questions, okay? He asked you about how you received the tweets that were entered into evidence. You recall that line of questioning.
I do.
While you did not pull the tweets that you reviewed, were you familiar with the Twitter account at Young Thug?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And how long had you been aware of that account?
Likely as far back as 2011 or 12.
Okay. And Mr. Steele, when he spoke with you, asked if you were familiar with a person by the name of Marissa Viverito. Do you remember that?
I do.
And how are you familiar with Marissa Viverito?
I've worked with her for a long time now in a variety of capacities over the years.
And where is she currently employed?
She's currently employed by the Atlanta Police Department.
And approximately how long has she been with the Atlanta Police Department?
She's been back with APD for maybe about a year.
Okay. And what does she currently do in her role at APD?
She is an investigative analyst with APD.
And in working with her as an investigative analysis, do the two of you work together?
We do.
And prior to her working at APD, where did she work?
Immediately before that, she worked for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
And do you know what she did for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
She started as an investigator, and I believe she was a lieutenant when she resigned and returned to APD.
And to your knowledge, while she was both with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office and with APD, did she assist with this investigation?
Yes, she did.
And has she continued to assist with this investigation since being at APD?
She has.
And to your knowledge, is part of her responsibility.
APD is Atlanta Police Department,
social
yeah.
media accounts.
It is.
For those who didn't know.
And to your knowledge, did she pull the Twitter accounts of the tweets that you reviewed last week?
Oh, objection, sir.
I believe that she did.
And let me ask you this: between you and Investigator Viverito, who has more knowledge about the earlier iterations of rock crew transitioning to SMF?
Hey. What did we say about one objection at a time? Ms. Weaver's only going to be able to take one. So can you stand and rise, Mr. Matthews? I told you about that. We'll go ahead and handle Mr. Sharp to begin. What's the basis for your objection, sir? I'll sustain the objection. What was your objection basis, sir? All right.
How long have you been following rock crew?
I would say since 2009 or 2010, likely 2009.
And do you know if Ms. Viverito has ever followed rock crew?
I don't recall if she was working with us during the rock crew investigation, maybe at the end of it.
And when you said end of it, when you referring to?
I would say the bulk of our rock crew investigation was probably 2011, 12, and maybe into 13.
Okay. So she may have become familiar around 2013-ish.
Yeah, and forgive me if the dates are off, but it wouldn't have been in the early phases of that.
What?
And the tweets that we were looking at were some of them from 2011 and 2012.
Yes, ma'am, they were.
Okay. Now, Mr. Shaw also asked you a number of questions regarding getting into the gang. Do you recall him asking you about whether you can get beat into the gang or sex into the gang?
Yes,
Okay. Is there another way that you can gain access into a gang?
there is.
What is that?
And it's that third one that I think we talked about in my earlier testimony. You can also commonly be blessed into a gang.
Now, do you recall Mr. Shaw asking you, in his line of question, asking you about getting beaten, and you began talking about being aware of YSL members in the school potentially beating in individuals? You recall that line of
I
question?
do.
All right. Now, what, if any, information do you have or do you have knowledge of as far as students in school, particularly YSL members, beating in individuals at the school?
You have an objection, sir? Competition clause. All right. I'm all with objection. Mr. Sharp?
My objection is exactly the same, Your Honor. Investigator's personal knowledge.
Hold.
You may answer.
I've reviewed police reports over a number of years where we had fights in schools related to YSL gang activity, and I didn't review specific reports before today as far as those fights that occurred.
During cross-examination, Mr. Shard, you were also asked a question about whether someone can unilaterally join YSL. Do you remember that?
I do.
And you said no, but you were not given the opportunity to explain. Based on your knowledge, training, experience, why don't you think that someone can unilaterally join the gang YSL?
Well, and I think I've said this potentially before, but the gang determines the gang's members are. And in my experience and through our investigation, the gang members themselves make a distinction between those that they believe are members of the gang and those that are not. But I've not ever seen an instance where someone declared themselves a member of the gang without any other association with the group.
Mr. Sharp asked you about a book of knowledge. Do you remember that?
I do.
In your training, knowledge, and experience, do all traditional, non-traditional hybrid gangs have books of knowledge?
Sir. Okay. No, in fact, most gangs don't have books of knowledge. Even traditional gangs on the West Coast don't have books of knowledge on the West Coast. And what we've seen, since West Coast gangs don't typically have books of knowledge, we've seen them become a thing here. They've been created here as some of those West Coast traditional gangs have moved here. This is to facilitate the sharing of information that is shared person to person where these gangs originated. And since this is a different location, the other side of the country, we've seen those books of knowledge show up here. Books of knowledge are commonly associated with traditional gangs in the Midwest, often Chicago-based gangs. That's where we've most commonly seen those over the years. But as I mentioned this morning, the majority of gangs are not traditional gangs. The majority of gangs are somewhere on that continuum of what we term non-traditional or hybrid gangs, and most do not have a book of knowledge or some codified set of rules and codes and things like that for their members.
Do you also recall Mr. Sharp asking about a due structure? Not all gangs have a due structure.
I do.
Do all gangs have a due structure?
No, certainly all gangs don't have a due structure.
Is there a requirement of a joining ceremony for a group to be considered a gang or an enterprise?
There's not.
Is there a requirement for a book of knowledge for a group to be a gang or an enterprise?
There's not.
Is there a requirement for there to be a due structure for a gang to be considered, for a group to be considered a gang or an enterprise?
No, ma'am, there's not.
Now, if a group does not have a joining ceremony, a book of knowledge, or a due structure, how do you determine if that group is a gang?
Again, we go back to the definition that we started with from the beginning, which is
The law, Jersey, public motion.
Also say objections. Question. Okay. Is this what you've already testified to, how it's already determined?
yes, ma'am, it is.
On cross, Mr. Sharp asked you about certain members and founders of YSL. Do you remember that line of questioning?
I do.
As a department, God bless you, as a department, how many members of YSL have you identified?
I believe we've identified.
Answer.
I believe we've identified over 100 members and associates of YSL.
And are all of those individuals listed on this indictment?
No, they're not.
And you were asked specifically about Fernando Crenshaw and whether he claimed to be a founder of YSL. Do you remember that?
I do.
To your knowledge, has Mr. Williams, Mr. Jeffrey Williams, Mr. Walter Murphy, and Mr. Trontavious Stevens ever acknowledged Fernando Crenshaw as a founder of YSL?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am.
Now I'm going to transition to some of the questions that Mr. Steele asked you over the last couple of days, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So first, Mr. Steele asked you a number of questions about the tweets. We spent a lot of days on tweets, and if the tweets that were introduced were in and of itself a crime. Do you remember that line of questioning?
I do.
Over the years of monitoring the Young Thug Twitter account, have you ever disputed that he also uses that account to promote his music
I have not.
or his concerts?
I have not.
In also reviewing his account, have you seen where he also promotes his gang or his gang affiliation?
I have.
Really?
That goes to intent.
Oh, sure. I have.
Are tweets in and of itself a crime?
Not necessarily.
When you say not necessarily, what do you mean?
Some tweets could rise to the level of terroristic threats, something of that nature, but no, typically they would not in and of themselves be a crime.
And Mr. Steele also asks if being in a gang in and of itself or associated with a gang is a crime. Is it a crime to be in a gang?
It is not a crime to be in a gang.
Is every piece of evidence a crime?
Come on,
When you're
Judge, now.
evaluating a case, do you look at each piece of evidence separately, or do you look at it all collectively?
I'm a saint for other reasons.
But he was a...
I'm a saint for other reasons.
All right, let me ask you this. Hypothetically, is leaving a shirt at an armed robbery a crime in and of itself?
No, it is not.
Hypothetically, is writing words on a piece of paper, say for example, I robbed John Doe, with a gun, a crime in and of itself?
No, it is not.
Hypothetically, is finding the DNA on the shirt that is left at the armed robbery scene a crime by itself?
No, it's not.
Hypothetically, can leaving the shirt at the armed robbery scene plus finding the DNA plus finding the note provide evidence of whether a person committed that particular armed robbery?
Yes, it certainly could.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as Stacey Zimmer number 1, slide number 2. Now, this is the same trial that you spoke about back in November of last year.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Now, when you look at tweets as a piece of evidence, would that factor in any part of this gang trial when you're trying to ascertain whether or not a crime was in furtherance of a gang?
Your Honor. You have an objection, sir? You got a state objection, and I'm going to ask you the basis. So,
It's your conduct, it's not your uncanny juries, it's the law.
I will hold the objection, sir.
You can't.
So reviewing a tweet or other social media could potentially factor into several places on this triangle. One, as we discussed, is it could actually be evidence of a crime itself, so it could actually be connecting the person to the crime if they make a confession to a crime, or if, in the example of terroristic threats, they were to actually commit the crime through the message. Additionally, as we're trying to determine if this person is employed by or associated with the gang, some social media could provide assistance with us identifying whether they are
Y'all make them as a crime
participating,
gang.
in a criminal street gang, again, which in and of itself wouldn't be the crime, but could be evidence of their association with the gang. Additionally, reviewing large amounts of social media over a number of associated persons over time also is answering part of our questions about the definition of a street gang and whether this group would meet the qualifications of a street gang based on those common identifying signs, symbols, tattoos, graffiti, attire, or
I
other
consider them as a crime gang.
Thank you. Mr. Steele also asked you specifically if the words furtherance of the gang is represented on that triangle. Do you recall that?
I do.
Are those words specifically on the triangle?
No, they're not.
At what point in the triangle do you determine if a crime is in furtherance of the gang, although those words aren't specifically on the triangle?
Your Honor, that's the law, and
Could you make an objection, Mr. Steele, and then let me go ahead and acknowledge you? Okay, basis.
it's the law, and I'm not going to take it's your problem.
I'm going to hold the objection. Answer the question.
So during our investigation, we evaluate all of the evidence that we gather through this lens, and from there, our knowledge of what it means to participate in the gang and what its potential motivations are would be at what point we would decide whether we believe there's enough evidence that this is furtherance of the gang's activities, and we would then bring that evidence forward to a judge or to a grand jury to present the evidence that we have.
Now, Mr. Steele introduced a number of different tweets and asked if they were in context to a particular tweet. Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to ask you first, outside of any promotional tweets, did you see gang identifiers for either Rock Crew, the Bloods, or YSL in the tweets that Mr. Steele introduced during his cross-examination?
I did.
All right. I want to first show you Defense Exhibit 61.
I like how she presents her her what? Her knowledge, her understanding.
And you can zoom in.
Thuggin' thug.
On the January 15th, 2012 tweet. Now, we're going to go to the tweets that the state first introduced, which is January 15th. Excuse me. We didn't introduce this. Looking at January 15th, 2012 tweet, the one on the bottom, which says, niggas keep putting my name, no shit, I'ma let them think it's cool till they beat the fuck up straight, 3 arrows or 3 carrots, and that go for everybody. Within that tweet, do you see any, what you would call gang identifiers in that particular tweet?
What I would note is what we discussed a bit is the avoidance of the use of the letter C, replacing that with the letter K.
I don't think so.
Looking at the tweet above it, nigga ain't giving me shit, so I'm not coming nowhere. Your shit gonna get shoot up, FR, exclamation point. Do you see that same type of reference of a C being used with a K?
I do.
All right. As far as context, were there any tweets introduced that said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to shoot your shit up for real?
No, I didn't see any tweets like that.
Were there any tweets to put this tweet in context that says, I'm just kidding, I'm not going to beat anything up? Is there anything in there that gives any context to that?
No, ma'am.
So outside of the promotional tweets that are contained within this exhibit, is that still a tweet that appears to be threatening to shoot something up for real?
Objection, not the candidate jury. Analysis.
And outside the promotional tweets, are gang identifiers still being used in those tweets?
I believe so.
I stand question.
I'm going to now show Exhibit 62,
Also, that's
61.
Stomach.
62.
Yes. Within State's Exhibit 62, do you see any gang identifiers in the promotional tweets that are after the top tweet with the 2 guns and the pistol P?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And with the 2 guns and pistol P, is there any significance about the 2 guns next to the pistol P?
Yes, 2 guns being the sex, money, murder hand sign, and that, of course, being a reference to pistol P.
All right. Now I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit 64.
Everybody go find my little brother on Instagram.
Who is the author of the first June 9, 2012 tweet?
The one at the top of the page is Walter Murphy.
So that's not the Young Thug account tweeting.
It is not.
And Mr. Steele asked you about DK or Walter Murphy. Do you know Cartel DK to be Walter Murphy?
I do.
And to your knowledge, is that the same Walter Murphy who was said to be a founder of YSL?
Yes, it is.
And to your knowledge, does Mr. Murphy claim affiliation with the Bloods?
Yes, he does.
And within that tweet that is posted by Mr. Murphy, do you see any gang identifiers, excuse me?
I do.
And what is that?
At the end of the tweet, it says Blatt.
Next, I want to go to Defense Exhibit number 70. number 70. You talked about there being a potential gang war during the time where this album or this album cover came out. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do.
When you discussed that there were back and forth messages, were these messages overt or subliminal during this time period of this gang war?
I don't know if I use the word subliminal, but they weren't always explicit. There were some explicit messages and some that were not.
Okay. And in your knowledge and experience, when it comes to gangs or individuals involved in a gang war, do they sometimes use messages that are subliminal?
Yes, they often use implied or not immediately apparent messages.
Okay. When did this war begin between YSL and either If Gang?
Our investigation of it began in January of 2015.
And to your knowledge, is it still going?
Yes, it is.
And during these last 9 years, have you seen the postings that you referenced regarding the
Yeah, I'm gonna skip it a little bit, okay?
handling the fake?
Okay, let's go ahead right here. He just talking. Why is he doing all that talking on the social media? He just talking junk. That could be anybody's car. He just funny. Well, at least they right there talking. They ain't out there shooting up, man. He just talking. Young Thug. Big baby. He looking at his attorney. Wonder what they doing on the computer, y'all. All right, y'all. Let me skip this because they listening. Listening. All right, y'all. I'm on I think they're gonna go ahead on and take a oh wait, hold up. Oh, you got my boy up here. Hold up. Hold up.
Not the lead investigator on that case. You never were the lead investigator on that case. That's correct. Okay. And that incident occurred on January 10th of 2015, correct? Yes, it did. Where Mr. Thomas was shot. That's correct. Okay. As an investigator, when you identify an important location where something may or may not have happened, you seek to obtain surveillance video of that location, correct? It's a very broad hypothetical. It depends on what the location is and if there's surveillance video to be had or other investigative potential needs. Okay, if people told you a group of individuals met up shortly after a homicide at a specific location, you would seek surveillance video of that location, correct? I may, as part of my investigation, do that. Okay. And if you were investigating that crime, or any crime, you would be able to seek that surveillance video as soon as you learned that that location was important, correct?
I stand confusion.
As an investigator, you would have the ability to seek out surveillance video as soon as you realize that it's a location of significance, correct? I'm not asking. Okay.
They can't even ask no question.
There's no rule that investigators have to wait a certain amount of time before seeking surveillance video, is there? There's not. Okay. And you would agree that oftentimes investigators know about the existence of an investigation before anyone else does. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I stand confusion.
Do you broadcast publicly when you're conducting an investigation? Yes, sometimes we do. Okay. In that case, Donovan Thomas case, are you aware of any public broadcasts about the investigation, who the suspects were? As we've discussed, I was not the lead investigator on that case, so I can't speak to the investigation. Do you typically share information about your investigations with the public, or does that compromise an investigation, potentially? Well, you're using the word typically, and there are many instances where we will have surveillance images, or we may have a witness description, we may have a forensic sketch that we would potentially even release to the public. So there are instances where releasing information to the public can be very helpful, and other times when that information may be withheld to protect the integrity of an investigation. And I understand if you're seeking the public's help in identifying someone or something like that, you would ask the public for help, correct? Yes. Contact the media, etc. Yeah, or Crime Stoppers or something of that nature. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you have information about an investigation within the collective knowledge of the police. Do you just spread that on the streets typically? Or do you keep the facts close to the vest?
Objection, counsel.
I stand with the form of phrase.
Do you share investigative leads
public on homicides?
Again, it depends on the case.
Are you aware of sharing specific information about the McDonald's on Cleveland Avenue being a location of significance? Are you aware of the public being told about that during the investigation? During the Donovan Thomas investigation.
Okay, so what is the question?
Are you aware of anyone sharing with the public the fact that the McDonald's on Cleveland Avenue was a location of significance?
Again, I was not the lead investigator on the case, so I can't testify to what was known or done in that
And
investigation.
I'm just asking, are you aware?
Again, I was not the investigator on the case. I don't have
Ooh,
knowledge.
they was terrible, y'all.
That would be no. You're not aware.
That
No, I'm
that
not.
McDonald's they talking about. Oh my gosh. I went there one time. They ain't
But
go
you
back.
agree that as an investigator, anyone investigating the case, and I know it wasn't you, who received information about the McDonald's being important, would have the ability to seek out surveillance. Hypothetically, when an investigator receives information about a location of significance, they would have opportunity to seek out surveillance, correct?
Every case is different. They have different leads, different evidence, and different investigative priorities. And
That's
so,
a bad
if
McDonald's,
we
y'all.
speak in a
They had to shut that
hypothetical
McDonald's
possible
down.
situation,
Woo.
or a typical situation.
Without delay.
I'm sorry?
Without delay. The police would be able to seek that out without delay.
That's sort of a fragment of the question. What are you asking?
I'll move on.
That McDonald's, y'all.
Are you aware
On Cleveland Avenue, you'll have to lock your doors.
law enforcement,
You have to lock your doors.
when law enforcement
I stopped going over there.
of the McDonald's on Cleveland Avenue being of significance in the Donovan Thomas case?
Understand the question is to ask the answer. Sure, come on, let's move on.
Okay. Do you know what discovery is?
I know of discovery. I mean, I don't know a legal definition of discovery or whatever.
Discovery are police reports, correct? That's handed over to the defense.
It can be part of discovery.
Okay. And videos and interviews and things of that nature.
For sure. I'm not aware of the legal process of discovery. I'm not a lawyer. I don't engage in that process.
Okay. You would agree that defendants don't receive discovery until after an indictment. Isn't that correct?
Objection, speculation.
I stop the objection.
Okay. The Donovan Thomas incident in 2000, that occurred in 2015, it wasn't indicted until 2022, was it?
No, I don't believe it was.
Okay. And it was indicted finally in 2022?
I'll sustain the question. Rephrase it if you can.
It was indicted a little over 7 years after the alleged incident?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about how long businesses maintain surveillance. How is surveillance video? Are they kept on tapes, on computer systems? How is that done by businesses? In your experience?
You can rephrase Mr.
In your experience as an investigator, when you sought out surveillance video from businesses, what form is it in? Is it in tapes, VHS, on computer systems? Could you just inform the jurors about that?
It varies depending on what system a business has.
Okay, give me, if it varies, different forms that you've seen of it.
All right. still some places that have some VHS tapes. Some may have them on a DVR. Some record them, depending on the business, to an off-site location, potentially stored closed circuit on a DVR. Others may use a cloud storage service of some sort as well. There may be other types also. And you said play on 60W, right? What was he doing immediately before? Well, if he knows, stay the objections. Do you know what Mr. Williams was doing immediately before that video? I do not. Do you know what he was doing immediately after? I do not. All right. Now, you spoke about with the district attorney on redirect examination that you have never investigated an author, movie producer, they're not going to include it, but a playwright, other types of musical artists outside of rap. You've never investigated. Do you remember those type of questions? I do. Let's stay the questions. Do you realize that in Fulton County and in our country, the only artist lyrics that have ever been prosecuted in a criminal case is rap lyrics?
That is the truth.
Do you realize it? Stay the questions. Come on, let's move on. Do you have an understanding of why only a music of rap? Can you explain, in your expert opinion, why only people who are involved in rap lyrics have their art coming to trial?
What? He gotta talk. Jesus.
Now, are you familiar with a place called, just referred to as the Green Store? I'm not saying that's the correct name, but are you familiar with what I'm talking about? I know of a place called the Green Store, yes. Tell the jurors where it's located. You're talking about in Mechanicsville. And do you know whether on January 10th of 2015, whether the Green Store had video store surveillance? I do not. You already were asked about that same thing about the McDonald's, right? I'm sorry? You already asked about the same type of question about the McDonald's. Yes, sir, I was. Both on redirect by the prosecutor as well as the Honorable Attorney Sherman, right? I believe I was asked about that on redirect. Okay. Now, hypothetically, a suspect tells you that they were at the Green Store and the McDonald's on January 10th of 2015. They tell that to you within 5 hours of the God forbid killing of Donovan Thomas. Do you or one of your teammates go and try to get any video surveillance? Let's stay the question. Alright, let's talk about Super Slime in the artwork. It's Mr. Williams number 70. Okay, the picture. You're tracking? I am. All right. Now, you put up on redirect examination states, and when I say you put up, you testified about states exhibit number 61W. And I believe you said that the March 20th, 2022, I think that was a posting, if I'm remembering. It is. Okay. And that posting had a superimposed emojis on it, and it was the eagle holding the snake. That's how I looked at it. Is that fair to say? Yes. And that is approximately 4.5 years after October 2017. That posting. Yeah, I believe roughly so. And I say October of 2017 because that's when the artwork of Super Slimy mixtape came out. You realize that? Yes, sir. So 4.5 years later is when you put together the super slimy mixtape artwork to this supposed gang rival, right? A state confusion. You can remove the word supposed. Can you ask a question? Raise the question, Mr. Steele. 4.5 years go by before you find a post and you say it relates back to this mixtape, right? Oh no, we certainly saw examples prior to that as well. Do you have it here? Well, we got one right here from August 26th. Anyways, okay, I may have an answer. Yes, ma'am. What's your question?
Not sure who, I guess, come in and clean up, but they ate all our shit.
I'm sorry?
Not sure who come and clean up.
Now, why are you blaming some other people? I mean, we don't know that they by shaking it. That place is locked in. Anyways, so are you sure you're not eating up all the snacks? We only have a limited amount.
No, we actually purchased our own.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll launch an investigation. How about that? All right, okay. What I'll do is we'll see if there's some other place that or that we can kind of do it because we do have to clean it. So I do know people that come in and do that.
They didn't even clean it. They just microwave with the hot sauce.
I have a good authority that the snack thievery will cease. Okay? So, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay.
All right, y'all. I just want to give a little review, summary, whatever you want to call it. What we just went through. I'm not gonna give it the whole full, but I'm gonna give you what I dictated from this live right here, this live stream. I want to tell y'all a little stuff that really take this trial serious because on Cleveland Avenue it was terrible with drugs and stuff. You couldn't get out your car. Up there where the McDonald's that Mr. Steele spoke about. Y'all, I'm not from that side of town, but I know that side of town because I've been here all my life. And I know some folks over there. But it was problematic when you pulled up in McDonald's and then you had churches right there. I have avoided that McDonald's numerous of times because I have family that stayed over there in that area, and I avoid that McDonald's, and I love McDonald's fries. So I stopped there one day, and I was like, "What is this?" You'll see somebody just like they walking towards your car. You know what I mean? You wouldn't if you're not from around there, you wouldn't know that they were selling right there, but it was. But I would never go to that McDonald's again, and I have never went to that McDonald's. But it shut down. So what I do tomorrow for y'all, I would take y'all tomorrow on Cleveland Avenue and show y'all the gas stations and some of the areas that Mr. Steele spoke on is real. And we're gonna see how is the area now since in the Rico area. And then I'm gonna take out down in the apartments, where where you saw the guys on there, they was talking. They was down in there and you saw the video that they show. I'm gonna take you out in some areas in Atlanta where they talking about the location where Cleveland Avenue is. I'm gonna show you some areas on tomorrow, okay? So y'all can know what they are talking about in this case in Atlanta, okay? It was terrible. It was so manifest. It was terrible. Just like they said. They didn't bother you, but it was terrible. But and let's see how it is now. So we'll go out tomorrow and go to the places, y'all. Y'all please hit the like button. Let's get the lights up. Most of my videos are informative. Um, it get into details of what's going on, but y'all check out my shorts. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Please support the channel and but please become a membership. Please become a membership. It's not but $4.99. All I ask a month. Okay. I love y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.